Road to the Boston Marathon 2024 Part 2. This week I'm going to cover my training plan. This is GoJohnnyGo, and here's my breakfast. This session was an early start, so a light breakfast is all I needed for this. Some Rice Krispies and a cup of tea will suffice this morning. I see a lot of different people creating content out there who are mad for coffee. Personally, I'm more of a tea man. So I'm going to pay homage to tea today. Here's my wonderful cup. Live your dreams. It's got a naked woman on a bird, so what more would you want? Now I'm going to let the session do the talking for itself before I explain the rest of my training plan throughout each week. Jesus, my hair's a sight. That's bad, isn't it? You just stab me in the head now, do you? Yeah. Mild enough though as well, like 11 degrees is fine, and there's a little bit of wind there, but nothing much, you know. You can feel a thing. You can feel a thing. So again. On it.
Probably need to stop you again.
That's no bother, no bother. So baseline first, and then after every 6. Yeah. They're generally around the 6 minute mark. And you want to do the 160 to 165 first?
Get it to 165 for the first one.
Yeah.
And we'll see what the lactate's doing. And then we'll go to 170 and then we'll see what the lactate's doing. And after that, it'll become a bit of a... we'll be playing around with it based on what the lactates are doing.
Brilliant, yeah, perfect. This session is a very common session that I would usually do on my own. I very rarely run with anyone else for company, but today we're testing lactate out in the field, as we've done that in the lab recently. The session itself is a 6 by 1 mile repeat sheet. To explain this further, I would warm up for about 10 minutes, I would run 1 mile at threshold pace, and then I would take 3 minutes off, 6 times, and then I would warm down or cool down for about 5 to 10 minutes as well. The difference today is that I have Neil with me. Neil is the man I call my coach, but I never actually give him any money. We've been friends since about 4 years of age, so I'm his cross to bear. Today, during the rest period, at the end of each mile, we're going to test the lactate in my blood. We do this using a portable item called the Pro Lactate 2. We are trying to refine how many beats per minute my heart rate should be at while I'm running these sessions. Every session that I run is dictated by heart rate, whether that's a threshold session like today or a long, slow run, which I generally do a couple of times a week as well. This is to try and get the best out of my training, and it also keeps each session with meaning and parameters that I can follow. After this session is covered within this video, I'm going to lay out how I would generally plan a training week running up to a marathon. So if you are interested in that, stick around and we'll cover that after this session is covered. There you are. Looking well. Jesus. I look like I could do with a sleep. Calvin, man, I won't give you the blood.
Oh, no, you're good. You're reading well.
Good stuff. Well, what's that say?
We're hoping for 5.5. After overcooking it on the floor.
3.9. Clearance, that's good.
That's good.
So that probably lines up with what the lab says. That little bit more.
6, 7.
To sum up the session that you've just seen, it was a 6 by 1 mile repeat, as I said earlier. I ran the first 3 mile repeats as planned, between 160 and 165 beats per minute. We got lactate measurements that were all just under 4 millimoles. Unfortunately, on the 4th one, I went out a little bit too fast. My heart rate monitor threw up a low battery signal, and this gave me false readings. My heart rate monitor was telling me that I was running at a lower heart rate than I actually was. This meant that this mile repeat was approximately 20 seconds faster than it should have been. Lesson learned. If you're going to do a big session, change out your heart rate monitor battery before you do, especially something as crucial as this where you're measuring lactate. I'll try not to make this mistake again. Now I'll move on to what a typical training week looks like for me. I generally do most of my key sessions on the weekend. This is due to time constraints during the week. So let's start off with Mondays. On Mondays, I usually do recovery. This can be in the form of just resting up, stretching, foam rolling, and maybe some yoga. Sometimes I even use the indoor or outdoor bicycle just to keep the impact away from my legs. This also helps circulate blood around the legs to try and get rid of lactic acid left over from hard weekend sessions. On Tuesdays, I do a longer type threshold session. This can be 3x10, 3x15, or 3x20, depending on where I am in the marathon cycle. These can range from 45 minutes up to 90 minutes in total. I find these longer threshold sessions key to keeping your pace high all the way to the end of a marathon. On Wednesdays, I usually do a longer slow run. This can be anything from 5 all the way up to 16 miles, depending where I am on the marathon training cycle. The purpose of this is to keep endurance mileage up at a slow pace. The emphasis of this session is to keep the heart rate nice and low. Moving on to Thursdays, I do the same session as I do on a Tuesday, so a 3x10 threshold all the way up to a 3x20 threshold, or longer threshold run. On higher mileage weeks, if the body isn't feeling great, sometimes I substitute this session out for just another long, slow run. This is to try and reduce fatigue and stop injuries. If I have any persistent niggles, sometimes I do these sessions on a turbo trainer or outside on a bicycle. Again, this is just to reduce the impact and reduce niggles where possible. After running 3 days in a row, Fridays are generally a recovery type day. Sometimes I just do a very slow run, 3 to 5 miles. I can substitute this out for some time on the bicycle, and I generally do a lot of stretching and foam rolling on this day. This is to aid recovery and to hopefully get a good night's sleep running into the weekend. In a marathon training block, Saturdays are where I do mile repeats. Early in the training block, I will do 1x3 miles, and every week I add a mile to the mile repeats. So the next week would be 4x1 mile, following would be 5x1 mile. I keep increasing these to a maximum of 10x1 mile. Sometimes you'll cancel out this session, especially if you have a race on a Saturday or Sunday. For instance, I have a 10k race next week. I've done 6x1 mile. Next week I should do 7x1, but I have a 10k race. Therefore, the following week I will do 7x1 mile. If I feel my legs have not recovered after this race, I will pare that back to 6x1 mile again. By doing this, I'm just trying to listen to my body and not add too much load to it too soon. On Sundays, I do a long, slow run. This is the cornerstone to reaching the end of any marathon. Without this, you may not see the finish line. I cannot emphasize enough how important this run is to building endurance to get you right to the end of the marathon. This is the one session in my week which I will not give up for anything. Now that is the week all wrapped up. The basic principles that I follow in any marathon training plan is to start off at lower mileage and build slowly through the weeks. While sticking to specific heart rate zones, I try to do 80% of my mileage at a slower pace and about 20, maybe 25% at that kind of higher threshold pace. Week on week, I add mileage, never more than 10% at a time. If you increase your mileage too quickly, you really do risk injury. So patience is the name of the game when training for any marathon. For next week's video, I'm hoping to cover a 10k race. This is one of my B races on the road to the Boston Marathon 2024. My A race is the Boston Marathon itself. This has been Project Sub 240 Road to the Boston Marathon 2024. I've been GoJohnnyGo.